Hey, what is up, everybody? Matt Druin, host of the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast. I actually have a very different type of episode today. I'm not interviewing a guest that is an actual real estate investor on how they did their first big deal. I actually brought in an industry expert that I've had a relationship with for quite some time. And one of the things that this is really important, and why you're going to want to tune into the end of this, is that one of the big differences between residential and commercial real estate is the financing, is working with the banks, understanding appraisals, and when to use a commercial mortgage broker. Because there's going to be times when you are looking to source deals or looking to source financing from your local community banks, and you're going to be making 20 phone calls, and you're going to have nobody that wants to do your deal. All right. So we have had a long-standing relationship with Tom. The reason why I brought Tom in is that Tom Grzebinski, our guest for today, is because Tom has actually looked for reasons why not to use him in the past, because he just is a tremendous resource in terms of putting you in the right direction. And so I want to bring him on because he's very impartial. So I want to welcome Tom Grzebinski of Gantry Mortgage. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Matt, thank you very much. Looking forward to helping add value and just fostering our relationship or helping anybody that is out there trying to get into this business and grow in this business.
Absolutely. So, Tom, I mean, how this whole thing started, I mean, I doubt that you were sitting in, high school math classroom daydreaming about becoming a commercial mortgage broker. Like, how did that whole journey start, and like what led you up to where you are right now?
I didn't even know this was an industry until I was 24, 25 years old. So indeed, I started in a local super regional bank, Lee Midland Bank, and then ultimately switched over and was recruited by M&T Bank to become an analyst over there. So I spent about 3 years at each of them, and I wanted to get into the sales side. And the brokerage community, the real estate brokerage community, is what allowed me to get into the sales side. So for the first 3 years in the industry, I literally sat in an office and listened and wrote memos and just learned as a sponge until I was to the point where I could start making phone calls and knew what I was talking about. Someone argued that after 21 years, I still don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't listen to those folks at all. So yeah, for 21 years and $1 billion later, here we are.
Excellent. So, just backing up a little bit, a lot of the people that listen to this show are experienced real estate investors. They may own a couple of, two-family triplex. They're really trying to crack the code in terms of swinging upstream, busting through that ceiling, and trying to break into, like, let's say, $1 million, $2 million type of deals, commercial income property. So I guess, like, what role does a commercial mortgage broker play as a member of their team in this process of scaling their business?
For sure. Scaling the business is important for the fact that you can get economies of scale, especially on the management side. We are seeing multiple times where people started with a couple of duplexes and then they leveraged those duplexes, took that cash out to buy a 12 unit. And then they've added value to that 12 unit. They pushed the rents, they renovated those units, they pulled the cash out, and then they've gotten to the 48 unit. And that's where the magic number starts, 48 units and higher, for you to really get some economies of scale. When you get to 100, now you can actually put a person on the ground and you have a management team and some real infrastructure. I share that background because you've lived that background. That's your story, right? You start, you grow, you pull out the equity, you go to the next project. So where a broker comes involved is that you mentioned the 20 phone calls and 20 lenders. Like, we're going to do all of that work for you on our side. We're going to prepare the package. We're going to underwrite the package. We're going to work with the borrower to make it as tight as possible so that we're representing what the request is, what their hot buttons are. We're going to go into the financing market, and whether that's regional banks, credit unions, life insurance companies, Wall Street, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, we have debt funds. We have so many buckets available depending on what the property type is and what the dollar size is. We're going to know which lenders are the best attractive options for you. We're going to get those questions answered. We will answer them for on your benefit 20 times. You only have to answer once to us, and then we'll take that and get it into the market. And we'll give you the quotes. We'll also, after the quotes, we'll identify the lender. We'll negotiate the application on your behalf. We'll negotiate the commitment on your behalf. We'll oversee the closing on your behalf. And in certain cases, we'll service the loan for the life of the loan also. So what it allows you as the developer to do, you as the operator to do, is go out and find the next deal and take this portion of your business, rely on the experts to do that portion, and allows you to keep growing your business and being on the ground.
Awesome. So, what exactly does a mortgage broker do? Like, what does their day to day look like? I'm trying to get a sense of what the actual, because it's like, a lot of people will look at things at face value from 30,000 feet up in terms of what people do, just like they do with like, I was a former real estate broker, for instance, and people are just like, oh, well, you just open doors for a living, right? And that's it. So, what specifically do you do as a mortgage broker?
We have the ability, the biggest thing that we add is just the gray matter of understanding what the lenders are looking for and how to present the request in an appropriate way so that it can be quickly identified as a prospect for the lenders and something that they want to work on. And because the package is tight, it's not a shoebox full of tax returns and stuff of that nature. It's a pitch book, and they're familiar with our process. They know that our numbers are solid numbers. And the more time you spend at the beginning of the process, the easier your process is for the finance. We really are trying to make it so that you don't have to be an expert in the finance. You just need to know the guy who knows how to finance.
So, let's say I want to go through a scenario here because I've been in this situation, right? I have two families and I have a three family, and I am looking at a 20 unit apartment building to purchase, right? I have gone to my typical lending institutions like community banks, that sort of thing. They've told me, they've said, nah, we're not, we're only going to do 60% loan to value and a 20-year amortization or a 15-year amortization, and or we're only going to be fixed for 3 years, or just a straight up no. There's one thing in terms of presenting terms that are untenable, because I've been in that situation before where I've been, going around all over town and thinking that, the typical banks I was going to work with were going to fund my deal. And also, let me put this into the context too. I have really all of my equity tied up into those properties. I'm kind of like cash poor, asset rich at this point in time. And I have some like investors that are friends and family that are lined up that want to participate in the deal, whether it's from just a straight up fixed income type of return or being an equity partner from the upside and that sort of thing. Like, what sort of things are allowed and not allowed when we're talking about like creative financing and dealing with a commercial mortgage broker?
Sure. What I'll start with is 2 ears and one mouth. You listen to what the pieces are and you try to put the puzzle together. So
Mhm.
every situation is very unique. There's definitely not a box in this business from that perspective. And in
Mhm.
the scenario that you referenced, you have several multifamily assets that you stabilized, and there's pent up equity that's in those. We're working on this right now where a client has looked and identified a larger asset, and he's looking and said, in my portfolio, I have this asset that has a bunch of equity pent up into it.
Mhm.
So we've actually done two separate loans in that case. We could have done a single loan across the two properties, but we've done two separate loans. One was loan pulling out the equity and immediately putting it in to the new project and the acquisition. What that allows the borrower to do is not have to come out of pocket for their financing, and it allows them to scale up.
So
Yeah.
in that cash out refinance, like that sort of like repositioning the portfolio to scale. I mean, let's say that, one of the things that is my mantra is, you uapma, use other people's money always. And so, I definitely am in the, mode of, when I do a cash out refinance, I don't necessarily want to take all that cash out and then make myself cash poor again by putting it into another deal. So that's the reason why I partner with passive investors that are going to participate in our deal in some way to provide that capital. So kind of like, what are like the do's and don'ts for people that are in that situation in terms of parlaying that into a conversation with a mortgage broker?
For sure. The great question. The answer is really from an underwriting perspective, you want to have at least 6 months of debt service as your liquidity number. That would be the optimal setup. Six
Mhm.
months of liquidity. And then from a net worth perspective, so that's all of your assets minus your liabilities, whatever that net worth number is, you'll want that to be the loan size, ideally the loan size at
Mhm.
least. The way to achieve that a lot of times is you can go, you said friends and family, but there are businesses, especially in Rochester, there's several individuals that are out there looking to do these equity loans.
Mhm.
And what they're doing, the structure is they don't take a mortgage position. They provide you with some cash, and they'll take a position on the entity.
Mhm.
What that allows you to do is not have a mortgage position. You have a personal loan. If for whatever reason you don't pay that loan back, they'll step in as the borrower and they'll own the property. So it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. It gives you that cash to show that you're liquid, but it also gives you the availability to scale.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the net worth scenario, right? So a lot of times, and this is what I was dealing with when I was scaling up and talking to regional banks, for instance, is, they told me, I was like, all right, well, you have to have a net worth equivalent to the total loan amount, what you're buying. I was like, well, if I had a net worth equivalent to the loan amount, I would need you guys. So what do I do in that scenario? Are there any workarounds on that type of situation where a borrower is looking, has a great deal, has a tremendous amount of upside. It's going to be a $1 million loan request, but they don't necessarily have the net worth to support that. Like, what are the options for them?
There's a couple of options. One is, there are three options. So one is pass the hand at the country club and raise some equity in the country club.
Uh-huh.
The second is to truly bring in a partner, whether it's one or two other individuals, to kind of spread that over and increase your balance sheet. And then the third is to do a joint venture or something like that. It doesn't necessarily work real well with the smaller size deals, only because there's a lot of cost associated with putting those deals together. But that is out there where you'll have somebody that comes in and every deal is different. They'll come in and give you 90% of the equity requirement, and there'll be a waterfall as the project grows and stabilizes. And then at some point, you've all agreed, we'll do this at the beginning, everyone will agree how they get out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So $1 million and higher would be the right trigger point to start discussions with somebody doing that. Those deals are great because you can bring those into Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they recognize that JV relationship is there.
Okay, so a lot of times where I'm raising capital from high net worth individuals, they're okay with, I guess I wouldn't say it okay with losing their principal that they invest in the deal or they place with you, but they don't want to be on the hook if something goes sideways in terms of losing more than what they have put into a deal, for instance. So there's a sort of scenario when you're scaling into larger deals where you have investors that are willing to put up the cash but don't necessarily want to sign on the debt, for instance. So I guess this is kind of like a sort of the same question, right? What are the options out there? Because the only option that I've had for myself, for instance, is relying on those like small but mighty community banks that will look at the deal and look at the relationship and your character and performance as a borrower, and are able to flex those sort of things that might be hard and fast with larger lenders.
Agreed. You're looking at that regional bank or credit union as the way to grow that portfolio. And very fortunate in Rochester and in upstate New York, Buffalo, Syracuse, to have a number of siloed lending sources for this type of product. The other alternative that you would have, as much as you don't want to hear it, is you pay somebody to sign the guarantees.
Mhm.
And either you give them more of the deal or you pay them a flat fee. There are people that are out there that would take a fee to sign as a personal guarantee.
So how does somebody find that type of person? Are those like, do they have websites? Are they Googleable? Or is this sort of like you have to go through the low tech process of just like working your network?
That's more of a network. There's not a banner next to the Solino law firm billboard that says, "Hey, come get me. I'm the hard money guy." But that money is very much available, especially in Rochester. There's a wide undertone of individuals with deep pockets looking to deploy that cash. So we're very fortunate. And in upstate New York, it's kind of nice because there's not huge high highs and huge low lows. The majority of the projects the reason is they've just been managed by people that are tired of managing them. Older generation that's just no debt on the deals. They don't care what the rents are, and they're just tired. And so you need to reinvigorate the project, make it more relevant, and watch over the project to add the value to.
So this person that would have the balance sheet that would allow you to get these deals done. I mean, in the syndication space, they're called like key principals, and so that's actually a position I'd love to be in someday because these are people that have the balance sheet, don't even have to put any cash into the deal, but just sign on the debt and earn upside just from that alone. So if you're actually, quote unquote, partnering with somebody as a key principal with a balance sheet, that's like super baller status that you can do. So, I mean, there are people out there that have larger balance sheets than you do right now and can bring that balance sheet to the equation. And then you can bring in your silent partners on the equity side of things to cap, that are interested in capping what their exposure is if things go sideways. And then you earn your equity as the partner or the operator who's managing the whole thing. So getting on the subject of balance sheets, like how do these lenders actually verify your net worth during the actual application process?
Let me go back for 1 second. Centers of influence are very important as you're scaling. What I would encourage every developer or potential developer to do is really get cozy with their attorney and have a good real estate attorney and an account, have a good real estate account. It's important how to get into the business. It's just as important how to get out of the business. So recognize what your whole strategy is and have a succession plan, have the trust attorney, et cetera, all right at the beginning of your process. That's something that you'll want to negotiate with every lender is the ability to transfer the ownership into a trust or do some estate planning. You want that right up front when you're doing your deal. What was the question again, Matt, for verification? Verification of liquidity. Generally, lenders are pretty rigid about that. They want their personal financial statement attested to, certified that you are being accurate. Some lenders, and you'll see this with any agency, like the Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, they'll actually pull 2 months of verifiable deposit. The liquidity is what they're looking for.
So on the actual loan, like the actual personal financial statement, for instance, I'm used to when I work with a community bank or regional bank is that I fill it out. I look at my, my own personal financial statement in terms of what my assets and liabilities are. I've never actually had a bank, one of these community banks, go and say, well, what is that real estate really worth that's on your balance sheet? What is that stock portfolio really worth on your balance sheet? And obviously, we've seen some instances in recent history with former president probably inflating some of these assets that are he's used as on a PFS. And I've never had a verification process when I've been working with the smaller banks. As you swim upstream, is that and working with your outfit, is that more of a scrutinizing with the institutions you place capital with?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever an instance where you want to misrepresent anything. I'm not interested in really working with any clients. Like, what? If I can't tell my mom what you're telling me, then I feel confident about it. Then I probably am not the right broker for you. That's a business model. The thought process is: would I be proud of this asset and this borrower being on a piece of media or a marketing piece that I do? And by the way, I don't market. I market as little as possible for very intentional reasons. I just want to keep my head in the foxhole as much as possible. Even this is a pretty big stretch for me to be exposed like this, but happy to do so. For someone like you, Matt, I mean, you're just an institution of Rochester, so happy to help wherever I can.
So the moral of the story is that there's a certain amount of creativity that you can use when you're doing real estate, but don't be so creative that it could wind you up in an orange jumpsuit.
No one needs that aggravation. That's exactly right. Just do the right thing. Get the moral compass aligned and do the right thing. If you can't do the deal, bring in a partner, and a cheeseburger is okay to eat. You don't have to have a steak every day.
Absolutely agreed. So Tom, when should someone start speaking with a broker?
Yeah, I think from a broker's perspective, the earlier the better. If you're doing a ground up construction, generally your attorney knows you're doing it. Generally your accountant knows that you're doing it. The broker should be in that position as well, because we can help with market information, rental comps, sales comps, construction cost items. So that's the ground up stuff. When it's a project where it's a value add, we could also help with those comps as well. So if you're buying a project that you think has upside because they missed the rent bumps or the expenses are just too rich because they have a family living off of the expenses, we could add a ton of value before you sign that LOI or before you sign that purchase agreement, just to help size the loan up. What it'll allow you to do is really have the cash on cash analysis done for you as well. The construction side, being a ground up, I don't know how many clients are going to be doing ground up deals, but on a ground up deal, right now with costs being where they are and interest rates being where they are, it's challenging to get a construction loan to make a lot of sense. And especially on a smaller size deal, when you get to 5 million or higher, now it's starting to get to account. So a broker is a good advocate at the beginning of the process. A lot of sales brokers miss the step of working with a financing broker, and they get the LOI side and then they keep their head in the sand and the borrower's going to go get their own financing. And sure enough, the borrower doesn't know how to go get the financing. And then, 60 days later, everyone's sitting there looking at each other. No, what do you want to do? If a financing broker is involved at the beginning and engaged at the beginning, that process will go a lot smoother.
Let's talk about, should somebody contact a broker if they've made those 20 phone calls to the local community banks, after doing that? Or if somebody is looking to, let's say, hey, I want to buy a larger commercial property, a $1 to $2 million deal or $1 to $2 million deal plus within the next 12 to 18 months, should they be interfacing with a broker right now, or is that too soon?
I don't think it's too soon. I think the preference would be to have a property identified so that we can have real numbers to look at. I think that's probably the to avoid time. It probably is too soon if you just say, "Oh, I want to get into real estate and I'm looking to buy a 48 unit." What we would be able to help you with is here are the sales brokers that are the A team that you should be talking to for that size deal. And there is definitely a hierarchy. Some sales brokers are really nichey on that less than 50 unit portfolio, and some are much better at that 300 unit portfolio. So we could get you into the right pew within the church at the beginning of the process. Happy to do so.
So Tom, how and when does a broker earn their fee? Because you don't do this for free. This is a business, and there's a business model attached to that. So tell me about that.
For sure. We kiss frogs, as you say, and sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince. We do a lot of upfront work on our own dime. Our team here is as an originator, I have an analyst, and we have a full-time closer also right here in upstate New York. We generally do about $200 million a year within that group. It's approximately, call it 20 loans, 15 to 20 loans a year. So average deal size in upstate New York is around 10 million, but that'll be anything from $1 million and higher. So that's kind of the scope of size. For this specific situation, we would earn our fee once you sign a loan commitment. So identifying an asset, underwriting the asset, marketing the asset, getting the application, negotiating the commitment, all on our own dime. Once you sign that commitment, we've earned our fee, but we won't collect it until you close your loan. We want to row the boat with you to the finish line. So it'll be on the settlement statement. It'll be a lawyer at the closing table. And that's the time that we earn our fee. We're not taking fees at the beginning. I think that's a horrible business model. I just let us do our job and we'll prove ourselves and we'll get paid at the end. To start the process, there is an engagement letter process. So it's a 2-page document that says, hey, I like you like me. We're going to work together. This is the fee. This is how I'm getting paid. This is when I'm getting paid. And what that allows us to do at the beginning is understand if you've already taken it to those 20 lenders, we're going to exclude those 20 lenders and we have the right to go to other lenders. So we're all on the same page right from the beginning. We're not throwing it against the wall.
Can't the buyers or borrowers just go to their local banks and receive the same quotes without having to pay a brokerage fee?
They could. They could go to the local bank and get quotes. I don't know if they're going to get the same quotes. Where we're adding value is we're creating the sense of the market. If they're getting a brokerage package, generally lenders recognize that they're not the only lender looking at that package. So they're going to tighten up their pencil a little bit. They're going to tighten up the underwriting a little bit. We're going to know how to push the lender and needle the process and create the sausage, if you will. By creating the market, it's really all about the borrower's hot buttons. And they don't even realize what their hot buttons are, but at the beginning of the process, we'll figure it out. Is it personal recourse? Is it all really about rate? Is it a 5-year fix? Is it a 10-year fix? Are you adding value so you only need a 2-year deal and then you'll refinance it later? Do you have partners that you have to take out? Do you have a strategy of you want to pay this off in 20 years? Do you prefer to have 30 years of interest only? There are so many questions to get. You can't just say, I want to buy this 40 unit property, go get me financing. It doesn't work that way. So they could get quotes, but then they're going to be spending that time with each of those lenders, asking each of those questions, as opposed to us compiling and aggregating those questions and being much more efficient with the overall process. And the lenders like that because they know we know how to get to the finish line. Whereas if you don't know what you're doing, it could get pretty ugly pretty quick. And if your attorney is the attorney that put the family will together, or is a DWI attorney and not a real estate attorney, that's not helping you. Sure, you saved $2,000 or $3,000 on the closing, but it cost you $5,000 to the other attorney because they had to do the work.
Yeah. So your fee is sometimes earned through the value you create with actually getting better deals out there. Am I wrong?
That's the perfect way of saying it. The other side of it, when the deals do get a little bit larger, is that we have a source of correspondent lenders that you wouldn't have access to without Gantry being a part of it. So we represent 12 lenders in the upstate New York. We're the experts for these 12 lenders. They don't have a sales force. They rely on us to bring them deals. So you could call Nationwide all day long, but I have the best property in upstate New York. I want to do business with Nationwide. They're like, that's great. We want to do business with you. Call Grzebinski because he's our correspondent over there. And that lender is heavily relying on our market expertise across upstate New York to provide them with, yeah, this is the right deal for you. And this is the right structure for you.
So give me a scenario of where those relationships that people don't have access to off the street has benefited one of your clients.
Most of the time it's because of right now, it's a perfect example. Most local banks, there are a lot of local banks that are just frankly not attractive as far as commercial real estate. They're shut down. And if you are getting a quote, a 5-year quote today in local bank world is 7.5, maybe even closer to an 8% interest rate for a 5-year deal. The correspondents, the life insurance company lenders, they're at a 10-year fixed rate and their rates based on the 10-year treasury, which today is 4.5. So a good baseline is 200 points over the 10-year treasury. So your all-in interest rate on a life insurance company deal is 6.5 versus 7.5, or 8 for a shorter term deal. So when borrowers want long-term, if a borrower wants an asset, and we've done this a ton with some clients right there in Rochester, prefers to have self-amortizing loans. So instead of a 3-year, a 5-year, or a 10-year fixed rate, they would prefer to have a 20-year fixed rate and a 20-year amortization. And the project's going to stay in the family and it's going to be a legacy asset. Upstate New York, there's a lot of families that are in real estate and they want that longer term fixed rate. They just want to put it on the shelf, let it pay off, and that's a retirement strategy. A life insurance company has the capacity on their balance sheet to do that, as opposed to a local bank, which is really short-term money, and they're not able to match off their assets that long-term require. Access to lenders that have different structures. We could take you to the local banks. We could take you to the other buckets or silos also.
All right. So last question before I stop interrogating you. All right. So, so Tom, what's your geographic reach? In terms of, are you siloed into just upstate Western New York, or do you have a larger geographic reach than that?
So our office is the 3 individuals that I referenced, myself and 2 others. Either the property or the borrower have to be in upstate New York. That's where it makes the most sense. It's very rare that I would have a California borrower and a California property. Mm-hmm. We can't be everything to everybody. So geographically, we call upstate New York Erie, Pennsylvania to the Hudson Valley, everything except for New York City. Mm-hmm. The reason that we use that territory is because generally those markets, even if they're all independent, they're relatively similar as far as rental rates, as far as cap rates and valuation. Once you get to New York City, it's a different universe. So if we drive the 90 corridor, the 87 corridor, the 81 corridor, all of those markets are Cornell being the exception, Ithaca being the exception, that's kind of a bundle. But the rest of the markets are generally the same type of underwrite. So we're very good at that underwrite. We understand those markets. I can't be everything to everybody. If a Rochester borrower has a property that's in Detroit, we're happy to help and learn and understand that market for that borrower because they do have some connection to us. They'll be a legit client for us and stuff.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that, Tom, is because there are some investors that are looking to restructure the portfolio to, let's say, acquire and develop their portfolios down in, let's say, Florida, for instance, but they're based out of Rochester. Have you ever helped a client with that venture in their business?
For sure. We've done plenty of business in Florida and the South. And why wouldn't you want to be in the South instead of up here in February? Uh, Perfect example of how we've helped add value is a client bought a piece of land down in South Carolina and they're going to build some multifamily. I'm sorry, it was in Tennessee. They're going to build some multifamily. And we started doing some analysis within that market. The borrower was from upstate. They owned the piece of land. They were going to do 200 units of multifamily. They were going to use a contractor that was down there, and they came up with the cost number, but the economics wouldn't make sense under those cost numbers. So they ended up finding a couple of other contractors to price it out. The number did come down, but it still didn't make economic sense to do that project. And furthermore, there was 2,500 units coming online in the next 24 months. So they weren't going to have, they were going to be competing with other new products. And then they weren't going to have any rent appreciation for 3 to 4 years because all of this new inventory is coming online. So they wouldn't have known all that information unless we did that research.
Yeah, no, this is great. This is great to know, because that's the one thing is that I've tried to establish relationships with, I mean, even like for, for S&Gs, so to speak, going down to Florida and calling on some community banks, don't get any return phone calls because they don't know me from Adam or anything like that. So this is an example, if you're looking to establish a footprint in another market, that they can rely on their local mortgage broker to help procure financing for them that already have those built-in relationships.
What I also add, sorry for jumping on top of you there, Pat. What I also add is that Gantry, we have 9 offices nationally, but we're also part of what's called the SAM network, the Strategic Alliance Mortgage Network. That's 20 independent companies, privately owned companies. Geographically, we don't compete with each other. We all have protected territories from each other, but we collaborate very well. So if you have a project in Florida, we have a affiliate that's down in Florida that I can pick up the phone and talk to another broker that's on the ground that knows who the lenders are, knows what the market is, and can help you as the borrower understand whether you're on the right side of the highway or the wrong side of the highway. And you and I can look at a map and see, oh, this looks fantastic. Look at these demographics. But if you're on the wrong side of the highway, you're in no man's land. And to have the ability to pick up the phone and have those conversations very quickly definitely adds value.
Excellent. So I promised some actionable homework for people that are tuning into this right now. So being as though that they're sitting in a certain spot, they have a few multifamily properties, they're looking to acquire larger deals. What would you say their homework over the next 30 days should be if they're looking to get into larger commercial income properties?
I think the homework should be talk to the right brokers, network, go to the events that are, whether it's a NAIOP or a NISTAR event. I've seen you at plenty of those. Understand who the players are. The real players are at those types of social events. So get yourself plugged in. Insurance agents are another good one to have as a point of influence. So your homework should be really figure out what you want this thing to look like 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years from now. And taking the steps to go from 20 units to 48 units is a big step. Going from 48 units to 100 units is, you think it's insurmountable when you have the 12 units, but that's the next progression. There's always somebody that's looking to buy that 12 unit portfolio so that you could upgrade to the next step. There's always someone right behind you that's trying to get into real estate. You've already learned and busted your butt trying to figure out this business. Let them figure it out now too. So there's always a progression. And then going from 48 to 100, there's always that progression of somebody that's looking to do that also. So just kind of identifying the assets, identifying your timing, be patient, don't chase the deal. I would say that that's a huge piece of it. Buy the location. I think that's the key to all of it. And as far as homework, I would say try to standardize as much as you can. If you have a 12 unit project, scattered site, use the same paint across the board. Figure out how to help your repairs and maintenance accounts get tight. Contract things out where you can for landscaping and plowing and things of that nature. Have fun. The whole mission is to spend more time with your family and not at the real estate. So the quicker you can get to that scale, the quicker you can have more time to delegate and more time to identify other properties so you can continue to grow. once you get that ball going and you get some cash flow and some annuity cash flow, I mean, you can buy a new property every 6 months or every year, depending on what your strategy is. Don't put the money in the chair, put the money in the next project.
Absolutely. I'm a big advocate of not spending your seed corn, because that's a compound interest that works against the opportunity cost that works against you on that. So Tom, concludes our first session for today. If you're tuning in right now, definitely we're going to have session number 2 coming up next week, or maybe in a week and a half. I'm going to actually coordinate with Tom in the green room right after this. But we're going to focus on lenders in terms of what the underwriting criteria is, some more technical type of stuff that you should be aware of when you're going into this, because the more you're aware of how the mechanics work on the back end with this, the less amount of surprises you're going to deal with. And my dad used to say the best surprise is no surprise. And if you get schooled on this stuff, then you're going to have less surprises and you're going to be able to grow your real estate business more at scale. So that being said, Tom, thanks for coming on, and we'll look forward to collaborating with you on session number 2.
I will say that by the next time that I get on, I will have a haircut. I promise. This was like a hippie over here, man. Thanks for your time.
Me too.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you and I will have our haircuts as well too. I'm getting mine done tomorrow. So, all right, thanks. I'll see you in the green room, Tom.
Take care.